Hey, everybody, welcome back. We are in the end of constitutional chaos. We have gone through the entire original Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and now we're going to dive into the remaining amendments to make sure everyone knows exactly where we stand currently, since as we've gone through. We've already discussed that what we know today obviously doesn't match what started. We've made some changes, progressed forward. So let's dive back in to constitutional chaos.
Let's go.
All right, so as usual, I'm going to go through these. If there ends up being any questions, please comment. I am human, I am flawed. I do still have the handy dandy Noah Webster dictionary, because where would we be without our dear Noah Webster? However, I feel that we have gotten to a point where most of the language used has changed, and or at the very least, it's become a little bit more familiar and easier to understand because we did do so much diving in with Noah at the very beginning. But I also feel like the amendments are not quite as convoluted as the rest of the Constitution. So let's continue on, shall we? Amendment 11, passed by Congress March 4th of 1794 and ratified on February 7th of 1795. Note, Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution was modified by Amendment 11. The judicial power of the United States shall not be construed to extend any suit in law or equity commenced or prosecuted against one of the United States by citizens of another state or by citizens or the subject of any foreign state. So essentially, the citizens of the state can sue the state. The citizens from other states can't sue that state. Other states can't sue that state. Foreign states also can't sue. So it's a way of allowing the states to continue being sovereign despite the overarching federal system. So yeah, that's really it on that one. We're just protecting state sovereignty because we've discussed this over and over and over again. The states are individual nations and have every right to make their own laws, but another state can't decide. So we'll just say Nevada can't decide that Oklahoma needs to follow its rules and sue the crap out of Oklahoma using the federal court system to change. We're not going to play that game. However, if the state has infringed upon its own citizens' rights, as we've seen with some gun laws across the nation, individual citizens of that state have sued and used the federal system to sue all the way up to the Supreme Court to get rid of the unconstitutional laws that have been put into place. That's really all it's doing. It's protecting states in a way so that they can keep their sovereignty. Amendment 12, passed by Congress December 9th, 1803, ratified June 15th, 1804. Note, a portion of Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution was suspended by the 12th Amendment. The electors shall meet in their respective states and vote by ballot for president and vice president, one of whom at least shall not be an inhabitant of the same state with themselves. They shall name in their ballots the person voted for as president, and in distinct ballots the person voted for as vice president. They shall make distinct lists of all persons voted for as president, and of all persons voted for as vice president, and of the number of votes for each, which list they shall sign and certify and transmit sealed to the seat of government of the United States, directed to the President of the Senate. The President of the Senate shall, in presence of the Senate and House of Representatives, open all certificates, and the votes shall then be counted. person having the greatest number of votes for president shall be the president, if such a number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed. And if no person have such majority, then from the persons having the highest numbers, not exceeding 3 on the list of those voted for as president, the House of Representatives shall choose immediately by ballot president. But in choosing the president, the vote shall be taken by states, the representation from each state having one vote. A quorum for this purpose shall consist of a member or members from 2/3 of the states, and a majority of all states shall be necessary to a choice. And if the House of Representatives shall not choose a president whenever the right choice shall devolve upon them before the 4th day of March next following, then the vice president shall act as president in any such case of death or other constitutional disability of the president. The person having the greatest number of votes as vice president shall be the vice president, and such a number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed. And if no person have a majority, then from the 2 highest numbers on the list, the Senate shall choose vice president. A quorum for this purpose shall consist of 2/3 of the whole number of senators, and a majority of the whole number shall be necessary to a choice. But no person constitutionally ineligible to the office of president shall be eligible to that of vice president of the United States. And there's a note in the section that I read about the House of Representatives not choosing a president. There's a note actually at the bottom. It is superseded by the 20th Amendment, so we will get there because, again, this is not what we're seeing. So what this changes, it doesn't change how the Electoral College system works. I broke that down back in, I think, episode 4. Pretty sure it was episode 4. I did a whole rundown on why it's important, etc. This doesn't change that system on the whole. What it does is split the presidency from the vice presidency. So if you recall back in Article 2, when we were talking about the president, the way they originally chose was the one with the highest number of votes became president, the one with the second highest number of votes became VP. So now we've changed it to here's the candidates for president, here's the candidates for vice president. Obviously, this is not what we see today, but in 1803/1804, that's what we changed to. So it also set up the vice president acting as president if something should happen to the president for the first time. So if you recall back at Article 2, if something happened to the president or the vice president, if they were removed from office, died, resigned, whatever the situation may be, Congress picked someone to replace them in the interim until another election could happen. So this is step 2 in changing to our current system for president and vice president. All right, Amendment 13, passed by Congress January 31st, 1865, ratified December 6th of 1865. So this one's actually pretty quick turnaround grand scheme. Note, a portion of Article 4, Section 2 of the Constitution was superseded by the 13th Amendment. Section 1. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States, or in any place subject to their jurisdiction. Section 2. Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. This is the end of slavery. This is post-Civil War. I'm fairly certain this is probably one of the most well-known amendments to the Constitution. You will note, though, that they said except as a punishment of a crime. So everyone who cries and moans that using convicts to do work for minimal wages while in prison, when you complain that that is slavery, it's not. It's just not. The Constitution says that's going to be the one exception. And that should be fair. You commit a crime, you owe work to the people for that crime. We're putting you up on our dime. You landed yourself in that position. Making license plates, they're needed, and there's no reason for that to be a highly paid job or really a well-paid job. You should be working off your crime. Amendment 14. Passed by Congress June 13th, 1866. Ratified July 9th of 1868. Note: Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution was modified by Section 2 of the 14th Amendment. Section 1. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the states wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Section 2. Representatives shall be appointed among the several states according to their representative number, counting the whole number of persons in each state, excluding Indians, not taxed. But when the right to vote at any election or the choice of electors for President and Vice President of the United States, representatives in Congress, the executive and judicial officers of a state, or members of legislature thereof, is denied to any of the male inhabitants of such state, being 21 years of age, and citizens of the United States in any way abridged, except for participation in rebellion and other crimes, the basis of representation therein shall be reduced in the proportion which the number of such male citizens shall bear the whole number of male citizens 21 years of age in such state. Section 3. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress, or elector of president and vice president, or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or any state, or under any state, who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress, or as an official of the United States, or as a member of any state legislature, or as an executive or judicial officer of any state, to support the Constitution of the United States, shall be engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. Section 4. The validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payment of pensions and bounties for services in suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned. But neither the United States nor any state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States, or any claim of loss or emancipation of any slave. But all such debt, obligations, and claims shall be held illegal and void. Section 5. The Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. All right, so this one's a little longer. So really, Section 1 is just doubling down on anyone born here, they're a citizen. We freed the slaves. We don't have indentured servitude anymore. So anyone here is a citizen. Anyone under our jurisdiction is protected in the same way. All of the laws are here to protect everybody. Now, Section 2 is where life gets a little bit more interesting. So it puts our first age limit, and of course it says 21 years of age, which we know that changed, and it changed with the 26th Amendment. There is a note in here. But yeah, so this changed because originally we had the 2/3 rule because of slaves and indentured servitude, so on and so forth. Obviously, we're still not including the Indians because they are not taxed. If you're not taxed, you don't have representation. So we're getting into any man over the age of 21 that is a citizen of the United States who has not been part of a rebellion. Remember, we're coming out of the Civil War, so they're kind of cramping down the South a little bit here. If you engaged in the rebellion of the South, we're stripping you of your rights to vote and crimes. This is also where felons lose their right to vote, so on and so forth. So yeah, we've basically just now set the age limit at 21. If you have been part of a rebellion, you don't get to vote. If you have committed certain crimes, you don't get to vote. Outside of that, all males 21 years of age and older, you have the right to vote. Done. And we've adjusted our numbers for representation because technically there's now more people because there's no longer the 2/3 rule. Section 3, this is the insurrection and rebellion clause. So basically, it's barring the people who participated in the Civil War to not be able to be representatives, be presidents, hold office, hold any kind of civil or military position unless Congress votes with 2/3 of each house to remove that. So we're really just trying to make sure, and I say we're really just it's a United States citizen. I'm sorry, it's a we. So really all they're trying to get at with this is, hey, you all just led a massive insurrection against the United States of America. You tried to split away. You're out. You're done. You're cooked. We're not having it. There are some exceptions to the rule. I would have to look them up. Obviously, Congress has to just vote by 2/3 to allow you to hold those positions. Really all it comes down to. Section 4, the public debt. So other countries aided in the Civil War, and there were debts that were owed, but they became null and void because they supported a rebellion. So basically, the United States isn't going to incur that debt. That was your problem. And obviously, Congress has the right to enforce the laws. If you don't put that in there, I mean, what are you going to do, really? Amendment 15, passed by Congress February 26, 1869, ratified February 3rd, 1870. Section 1. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Section 2. The Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. So this is when former slaves obviously got to vote. And yeah, so you'll notice that these all came in very rapid succession. So we went from 1865, where slavery ended, 1866. We changed all of our census laws and representation, so on and so forth. And then in 1869, we turn around. So very quickly in succession, we changed our whole country's setup and made sure that whether you used to be a slave or not, now you have the right to vote. Or at least men. We're still in men. Right. Amendment 16, passed by Congress July 2nd, 1909, ratified February 3rd, 1913. Note, Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution was modified by Amendment 16. The Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived, without apportionment among several states, and without regard to any census or enumeration. So this is when they decided that they get to just pick your pocket however they want, whenever they want, with no limits. So if you recall, we went from England, where we were being just taxed to hell and back on just about everything that was coming over, and we weren't allowed to have any representation. So we flipped the king and everybody the bird, dumped a bunch of tea into a harbor, fought and died to break free, and then decided taxes were proportional to states. So your representation and your taxes were proportional to each other. So now they can take whatever they want. So we can thank our lovely friends in 1909 to 1913 for that. So this is where your pocket starts getting picked by the federal government with no limits. And I was listening to someone the other day, and I'm trying to recall. I don't recall who. It was something sent to me on X by really awesome guy. If you get on my X, I'm at Newly Liz Rice. You can find it in my bio on here. If you get on my X and scroll through, I actually retweeted a YouTube link to this. There was a guy in the 60s talking about when empires start to really crumble. And every time it's based on how much the citizens are taxed. So when this went in and got ratified, and all of a sudden they can pick our pocket with no limit, there is a position where I believe he said it was 30%. I'll have to go back and verify that, so don't hold me to it. And I will try to also link that in the description in this video. I'll remember it because I'm editing this. So I'll link that in the description also so you can go listen to it. But I believe he said it was 30, somewhere around the 30% range. When they start taking that much from the citizens, everything starts to crumble. And that's about where we're at today. So you reach a point where you're taking too much from your citizens and you just have overextended yourself. You have bloated your government to such a scale that there's really no coming back from it, and you start to collapse. And he was saying if you don't do something about this, and we ebb and we flow back and forth depending on who's in charge and what, I guess, probably I would call it the globalist elites, what they really think. That's how much taxes are coming out. So, everyone's all up in arms about Doge. But the reason we have to pay so many taxes is because our government is just so bloated. There's so many bureaucrats, there's so many paper pushers, there's too many people doing the same thing, just in different departments. So every time you go to try to get something done with the government, you have to get the paperwork stamped by this guy, and then this guy's got to stamp it, this guy over here has to stamp it, when really it could just be one person if we were actually trying to be efficient. So this was the beginning of the end of our country. That right there. That's the beginning of the end for us, because there are no limits on how much they can tax us. That should make you very afraid. You should be fighting for them to stop taxing you to hell and back. You should want to keep your income. You should understand that empires fall because they just get too bloated. It's too much to manage. It's trying to take from too many people. And then the empire starts to collapse. And we're doing it pretty quickly. We're collapsing very quickly. This country is approaching its 250th birthday, and we are already gone. We've gone so downhill. It just absolutely downhill. And this was the beginning of the end. Now, one of the biggest things to be aware of when we talk about income, the Noah Webster definition of income, that gain which proceeds from labor, business, or property of any kind, the produce of a farm, the rent of a house, the proceeds of professional business, the profits of commerce or of occupation, the interest of money or stock or funds. Income is also synonymous with revenue, but income is more generally applied to the gain of private persons and the revenue to that of sovereign or a state. We speak of annual income of a gentleman and annual revenue of a state. You notice that income's fairly passive, right? When you go and look up wage, it's to make, to set, to hire, to take, to hire for pay, to employ for wages. You're being taxed on wages, not just your income. That's what's dangerous. Wages and income are different, but they list everything as income tax. That's where you start to see this crumble. So I don't know if any of you have seen the video, but they got caught talking in Congress about how income tax is voluntary. That's because what's being taxed is your pay. Your pay is not your income. Your pay is your wages. The things that you work for are wages. The things that you make on rental property, so on and so forth, that's not wages. That's income. That is what should be taxed. You should not be taxed on your wages. That's where the voluntary process, and there's several books written by ex-IRS agents that say, we don't know why people actually pay this. That's where you need to understand that there is a distinction between income and wages. And the United States of America has been taking great advantage of you by calling your wages income. It is a lie. It is an absolute lie. It is an absolute farce. Income is passive. Wages are not. So what you work for are wages. What your boss makes, the profit he makes from what you've done, is income, because he was not the one who did the work. I hope you understand what I'm saying. I hope you start looking further into this. We need to take back some power here before it's too late. Next time, we'll dive into more. I believe I've gone plenty of time. I'm trying not to overwhelm you all with too much information. There's still several more amendments to get through, but we'll continue on another day. I hope you have a great one.